Gopesha Gopikakanta Narakanta Namostute Taptakanta Gorangi Hare Krishna Sudevi Pranamani Shive Chitanam Pavanebhyo Ishtadeyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna
So today we'll be starting from chapter 17, text number 25. Text 25. Translation, Sanskrit and translation in unison. Tad ityanabhisandhaya phalam yajya tapakriya dana kriyascha vividha kriyante mokshakangshivihi. One should perform sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from the material entanglement. Text 26 and 27. Sadbhave sarubhave cha sad ityetat paryujyate pashaste karmani tata sachchabdha partayujyate yagye tapasi dane cha stiti sad iti chokshate yate karma chaiva tat arti yang sad ityeva vidhiyate. The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice, and it is indicated by the word tat, sat. These works of sacrifice, of penance, and of charity, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha. Text 28. Ashradhaya hutam datam tapastaptam kritam chayat asad ityuchyate partha nacha tat pretya no iha. But sacrifices, austerities, and charities performed without faith in the Supreme are non-permanent, O son of Pritha. Regardless of whatever rites are performed, they are called asat and are useless both in this life and the next. Chapter 18, text number 1. Arjuna uvacha sanyasyasya mahabaho tattam ichhami veditum tyagasya cha rishikesha pritakeshi nisudana. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyasa. O killer of the Keshi demon, Rishikesha. Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam Sanyasam Kavayo Vidu Sarva Karma Phalatyagam Prahustyagam Vichakshana. Translation. The Supreme Lord said, to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation, tyaga, by the wise, and that state is called the renounced order of life, sannyas, by great learned men. Text 3. Tyajyam doshavat ityeke karma prahur manishana yagyadana tapakarma natyajyam iti chapare. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, but there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Text 4. Nishchayam shrinume tatra tyage bharata satama tyago hi purushat yagra trividha samprakirtitaha. O best of the Bharatas, hear from me now about renunciation. O tiger among men, there are 3 kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. Text 5. Yagyadana tapakarma natyajam karyam evatat yagyodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Text 6. Etan japitu karmani sangham tyaktva palani cha kartavyani ti me partha nishchitam matam uttamam. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Text 7. Niyatasya susanyasa karmano nopapadyate mohatasya parityagas tamasa parikirtitaha. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Okay, so we'll return to chapter 17, text 25. Translation. One should perform sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from the material entanglement. Purport. To be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gain. Act should be performed for the ultimate gain of being transferred to the spiritual kingdom, back to home, back to Godhead. Text 26 and 27. The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice, and it is indicated by the word sat. These works of sacrifice, of penance, and of charity, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha. Purport. The word prashaste karmani, or prescribed duties, indicate that there are many activities prescribed in the Vedic literature which are purificatory processes beginning from parental care up to the end of one's life. Such purificatory processes are adopted for the ultimate liberation of the living entity. In all such activities, it is recommended that one should vibrate Om Tat Sat. The words Sadbhave or Sadhu Bhave and Sadhu Bhave indicate the transcendental situation. One who is acting in Krishna consciousness is called Sattva, and one who is fully conscious of activities in Krishna consciousness is called Swarupa. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the transcendental subject matter becomes clear in the association of the devotees. Without good association, one cannot achieve transcendental knowledge. When initiating a person or offering the sacred thread, one vibrates the words Om Tat Sat. Similarly, in all kinds of yogic performance, the supreme object, Om Tat Sat, is invoked. These words, Om Tat Sat, are used to perfect all activities. This supreme Om Tat Sat makes everything complete. But sacrifices, austerities, and charities performed without faith in the Supreme are non-permanent. O son of Pritha, regardless of whatever rites are performed, they are called asat and are useless both in this life and the next. Purport. Anything done without the transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless. Therefore, in this verse, it is declared that such activities are abominable. Everything should be done for the Supreme in Krishna consciousness. Without such faith and without the proper guidance, there can never be any fruit. In all the Vedic scriptures, faith in the Supreme is advised. In the pursuit of all Vedic instructions, the ultimate goal is the understanding of Krishna. No one can obtain success without following this principle. Therefore, the best course is to work from the very beginning in Krishna consciousness, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the way to make everything successful. In the conditional state, people are attracted to worship demigods, ghosts, and yakshas like Kuvera. The mode of goodness is better than the modes of passion and ignorance, but one who takes directly to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way. And that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find the proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme. When that faith matures, in course of time, it is called love of God. This love is the ultimate goal of the living entities. One should, therefore, take to Krishna consciousness directly. That is the message of this 17th chapter. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports, the 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the divisions of faith. You think you could turn this down? Chapter 18. It can stay on, but just not so loud. Chapter 18, text 1. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Keshi demon, Rishikesha. Purport. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17th chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. In every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. This same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service. Yoginam api sarvesham, quote, of all yogis or transcendentalists, one who always thinks of me within himself is the best, end quote. In the next 6 chapters, pure devotional service and its nature and activity were discussed. In the third 6 chapters, knowledge, renunciation, the activities of material nature and transcendental nature, and devotional service were described. It was concluded that all acts should be performed in conjunction with the Supreme Lord, summarized by the words Om Tat Sat, which indicate Vishnu, the Supreme Person. In the third part of Bhagavad Gita, devotional service was established by the example of past acharyas. And the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra, which states that devotional service is the ultimate purpose of life and nothing else. Certain impersonalists consider themselves monopolizers of the knowledge of Vedanta Sutra, but actually, the Vedanta Sutra is meant for understanding devotional service, for the Lord himself is the composer of the Vedanta Sutra, and he is its knower. That is described in the 15th chapter. In every scripture, every Veda, devotional service is the objective. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita. As in the second chapter, a synopsis of the whole subject matter was described. Similarly, in the 18th chapter also, the summary of all instruction is given. The purpose of life is indicated to be renunciation and attainment of the transcendental position above the three material modes of nature. Arjuna wants to clarify the two distinct subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation, tyaga, and the renounced order of life, sannyasa. Thus, he is asking the meaning of these two words. Two words used in this verse address the Supreme Lord, Rishikesha and Keshi Nisudana, are significant. Rishikesha is Krishna, master of all senses, who can always help us to attain mental serenity. Arjuna requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he can remain equipoised. Yet he has some doubts, and doubts are always compared to demons. He therefore addresses Krishna as Keshi Nisudana. Keshi was a most formidable demon who was killed by the Lord. Now Arjuna is expecting Krishna to kill the demon of doubt. Text 2. The Supreme Lord said, to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation, tyaga, by the wise, and that state is called the renounced order of life, sannyas, by great learned men. Purport. The performance of activities for results has to be given up. This is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. But activities leading to advanced spiritual knowledge are not to be given up. This will be made clear in the next verse. There are many prescriptions of methods for performing sacrifice for some particular purpose in the Vedic literatures. There are certain sacrifices to perform to attain a good son or to attain elevation to the higher planets. But sacrifices prompted by desires should be stopped. However, sacrifice for the purification of one's heart or for advancement in the spiritual science should not be given up. Text 3. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, but there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Purport. There are many activities in the Vedic literatures which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give a new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. Text 4. O best of the Bharatas, hear from me now about renunciation. O tiger among men, there are three kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. Although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. After all, the Vedas are different laws given by the Lord. Here the Lord is personally present, and his word should be taken as final. The Lord says that the process of renunciation should be considered in terms of the modes of material nature in which they are performed. Text 5. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Purport. Yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yajna, Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha yajna, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind and become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this vivaha yajna should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. Sannyasis should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. All these activities should be performed, text 6, all these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Pritha, that is my final opinion. Purport. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. Text 7. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Work for material satisfaction must be given up, but activities which promote one to spiritual activity, like cooking for the Supreme Lord and offering the food to the Lord, and then accepting the food, are recommended. It is said that a person in the renounced order of life should not cook for himself. Cooking for oneself is prohibited, but cooking for the Supreme Lord is not prohibited. Similarly, a sannyasi may perform a marriage ceremony to help his disciple in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. If one renounces such activities, it is to be understood that he is acting in the mode of darkness. Does anybody have any questions on any of these topics? Yes, Dr. Joseph? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think it was in maybe the second to last purport. He's talking about how Prabhupada says one shouldn't necessarily, in the sake of his duty, not neglect getting married. But sometimes we hear here that brahmachari life is far superior to grihastha life or to really any other. There's a type of superiority that is referenced here at RVC sometimes, but I wasn't necessarily getting that from the purport from Prabhupada. So I was wondering if you could touch on this, and maybe I've misunderstood, or maybe brahmachari life really is the fast track.
Well, yeah, if somehow or other we've presented that, well, we have to see what's our criterion. Our criterion for superior or inferior is based on its favorable, how favorable it is for development of Krishna consciousness. So that's the real lens that we look through. So then, it's like, that's different case by case. There are some generals which can be discussed, but it is true, and it's described in the Bhagavatam how the knot in the heart becomes tied when we associate with the opposite sex, and it's like there's stories which describe what happens when we do get entangled in family life, and persons like some of the acharyas and mahajanas, they describe it's like a dark well, but that's when it's devoid of Krishna consciousness. If we have a family or a household and we have a deity of Krishna or Shishi Gornitai or the Panchatattva painting to get started, it's a great starting point, just to have a picture of Panchatattva and Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master. So we make the house a temple and we work to bring funds for maintenance of that temple. We train ourselves or we receive training from this under the guidance of the spiritual master, and we practice spiritual life ourselves, and we also train those who have been given under our charge. They become our dependents, like those who are developed from the body of the mother and father. So the children will be trained in Krishna consciousness, and they will have a beautiful garden for giving fruits and flowers to Krishna. They'll have, instruments for glorifying the Lord. They'll make all arrangements for festivals, invite guests to their home, and propagate Krishna consciousness, just like a temple. And that's amazing. It's perfect. That's actually sannyasi, actually, also. But whenever we talk about brahmachari, or we get this idea that brahmachari may be better or worse or something like that, it has to be taken case by case. So the spiritual master knows best, but in general, it's usually recommended that we try to get the spiritual training whenever we can. So if by Krishna's arrangement, we came in contact with the bona fide spiritual master and the training process, we're able to accept devotee association without focusing on another person's spiritual life and material life. And then it may be easier for us to pick it up ourselves first. So therefore, when we come to Krishna consciousness movement as a single man, then in general, it's usually recommended that that person try to learn a little bit. He gets it under his belt. He kind of knows his way around the Gita, and he knows some shlokas, and he knows, the purpose of my life is service to Guru and Krishna. And if I can make more advancement by association of the opposite sex and have a Krishna conscious family, then when the time comes for that, then that may be. But the purpose of emphasizing brahmacharya is actually, as we heard from yesterday's classes, Prabhupada speaking in his purport, that when you are in married life and have sex for procreation, then that's also celibacy, considered celibacy. That's also called brahmacharya. By definition, that's included there. So basically, in this Krishna consciousness movement, everybody's a brahmacharya. If you want to make spiritual advancement, you gotta be a brahmacharya. But that's a different definition than like this external type of like lifestyle and like that designation. It means that we're practicing celibacy. It means literally, it means no illicit sex. You know, so anybody that wants to make spiritual advancement has to do that. You can't make advancement spiritually, really. You know, there's some, but when we say these types of things, like you can't make spiritual advancement if you're eating meat, or you can't make spiritual advancement if you're having illicit sex, what it means is that you're putting water on the fire that you're trying to start. And it's like for us that are still like under the grip of these material desires, what does that mean? That means the fire is not blazing yet. It's very you know, sensitive. Has anybody lit a fire? Yeah, you know how it is. It's a little bit tricky. You got to get the right stuff. There's like a certain type of bark that kind of like, it's like a flat bark. And if you like fray it a lot, and it's good kindling, you know, good tinder, they call it. Start, you spark it and it catches the spark easily. But then you got to have the little sticks ready and like start the little thing, or maybe you use the lean-to tactic or the log cabin tactic, like that. Different tactics to start the fire. Basically, what I'm saying is somebody who's performing the 4 pillars of sin, full life, they just douse water on all their stuff and then try to start the fire. It's really tough. So, to answer your question, one should prioritize receiving training in spiritual life. So if being a single person, man or woman, can benefit one to receive training in spiritual life, then he or she should accept that. Because the path is, you know, we got a long way to go to get rid of all these anarthas, you know? So if I don't have the training, then, you know, my trajectory or my, you know, my longevity is going to be hurt. Think about it like this. You are not your body. So then, why do I want to spend time with this specific type of body in a specific type of way? This has to do with this body and this mind. This mind and body, in this, I'm conditioned to identify with this mind and this male body. So there's a propensity. So therefore, Prabhupada discusses they're very liberal minded. Very liberal minded. This is not a fanatical brahmacharya movement. There are those types of movements and institutions. And there's one specific interaction in Vrindavan. A group of sadhus came to see Prabhupada. And there was a woman in the room receiving darshan of Prabhupada, as well as other men who were in the room also, which was a rule that was also followed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. That he wouldn't, it's not that he wouldn't have women disciples or associate with them or give them instructions to some degree, but there was a man there as well, right? So But these men came to see Prabhupada, and they were sadhus, and they were very much serious about not going in the room when there was a woman inside. And somehow the conversation came up after. Prabhupada met with them anyway. And after he met with them, he made a comment to his disciples how they had very dirty teeth. And he said, what is, it's not, it doesn't match up. That if these, these gentlemen are, basically he didn't estimate it that it was very high on the spiritual level to, be renounced from association with women, be very devoutly disassociated with women, but not even to care for one's own mouth, like a basic level, So, of course, that pastime of Srila Prabhupada, can be explained, maybe a little bit more by the persons who were there. They may have some more insight on why that was so significant, why he drew so much information from that they had dirty teeth, and how that wasn't very impressive, even though they were very renounced from women. So what I'm trying to say is that Prabhupada was very liberal-minded, and he states that for most men, they're very much attached to association with women, and if this can help their minds become peaceful so they can prosecute Krishna consciousness, then we should be all for it. At the same time, there was a period when there was kind of like, there was like a period of history in the movement when there was so much fervor for preaching and opening new centers that it was generally like understood that like a married couple should go to a new place and open the temple together. Then they'll have support, emotional support, all the types of support that are naturally there among man and woman, like that. And their whole goal will be pleasing the spiritual master and pleasing Krishna. So there was a time when there was so much of that fervor that they were kind of like, Prabhupada also gave an instruction that it was like the management's duty to make sure all the women get married. So anyway, the idea is that in general, it's really helpful for them. And then he also mentioned that there's an ideal that all the women get married and all the men stay brahmachari. So, but it's like within that statement itself is a beautiful kind of realness of Srila Prabhupada, because like, it's like the ideal is like, it's so ideal that it's like, it's not possible, practically speaking, but our goal is to keep striving for the ideal. So the point I was trying to get at is there was a period in our history when there was some kind of matchmaking by the temple authorities and by Srila Prabhupada even. And to help his disciples, basically like, okay, that's taken care of nicely. It's going to be great. Serve Krishna, together like that. But some of those relationships didn't work out. When I say didn't work out, it's in the Vedic conception, marriage means done. That's it. There's nothing. It's just you work together, figure it out. you know. But in the West, we have a different idea of marriage, you know. So some of the disciples weren't able to follow through with the instructions and the vow, the marriage vow. And so then that became kind of a little bit trouble. It was a little bit displeasing or dissatisfactory to Srila Prabhupada that, you know, that was happening. And he stopped doing the arranging, you know, because if he went to the trouble to pair and they weren't able to follow through with it, it didn't sit well. So he basically just was like, okay. So here at RVC, we're trying to be first-class devotees. Right? Trying to be first-class devotees. So that's actually beyond brahmachari or grihast and like that. If we're in that ashram, if we perform it with serious dedication, commitment, you know, integrity, then we do that to please Krishna. Like we said, what is the goal of that whole thing? Following that etiquette, those rules, is to satisfy Krishna, you know? So we learn about how to be a proper brahmachari from Srila Prabhupada. And then we also learn about how to be a proper grihastha from Srila Prabhupada. And if that's where we're at, then, you know, then we do that for Krishna's pleasure. And ultimately, you know, we come to the stage as stated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's actually quoted. There's a lot of things which are quoted, like things that the devotees heard him say. You know? Then there's also the Shikshashtika, which he wrote. That's a long historical subject, which I'm not quite qualified to speak on. But as far as I understand, this verse, which is very famous, it's he's basically says, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Kshatriya, and I'm not a Brahmana. I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm not a Grihastha, I'm not a Vanaprastha, I'm not even a sannyasi. I'm simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the maintainer of the gopis. So the maintainer of the gopis, Bhartur, this is a word which is used to mean basically a husband. He maintains his wife. And so the maintainer of the gopis is none other than Lord Krishna. So das, anudas, anudasa. Like that. It's a very beautiful verse. We chant it every day when we do puja, when we're going to bathe Shri Shri Gaura or this like that. We pray that as part of that. And actually, it's really beneficial to pray these types of prayers, like when we're going to perform our services, because it reminds us of our real identity and our real goal. It's like, if I am not any of these things, but I'm actually the servant of the servant of the servant, a million times removed of the devotees, then that gets me right in the right mentality for doing my service. You know, if I'm going to chant my rounds, it's like, that's a great meditation. It's like, I'm just a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees, you know, of Krishna. That's my mood when I'm doing my japa. That's my mood when I'm doing everything. Using that technique of reminding ourselves of our real identity, then we can be detached from the results. You know, then we can do it for Krishna's pleasure. Because we heard, like, we reminded ourselves. So this is a type of a purification. These shlokas, they purify the consciousness. They remind us, they bring us to the higher level of consciousness. So it's not, as we heard discussed, it is transcendental to perform your prescribed duties for the pleasure of Krishna. Anyone, it's stated in one of the purports, anyone who is performing the prescribed duties, he's transcendental. Now, it's very difficult to do these things in this age, to follow completely perfectly all these different, ways that the brahmachari is supposed to be grihastha and sannyas like that. But we should remind ourselves, like Prabhupada was reminding us, the ultimate goal of all the Vedas has nothing to do with, your relationship status with any other body. It has to do with the spiritual relationship statuses. What's your relationship status with the guru? On my page, my relationship status is disciple. I have my relationship with the guru. And through that relationship with the spiritual master, then I also have my relationship with all the devotees and with Srila Prabhupada and with all the acharyas and with Krishna, But he's kind of my link to the whole family. So that's the relationship status, which is the most important. Things like our ashram is not as important as how well we're situated in Krishna consciousness. Our ashram may be able to support more or less that main thing, which is to be Krishna conscious. That was okay. It was a long answer. No, we want pure love of God. That's what we want. So we just keep that. Krishna says, I'll give you the intelligence. So then you may give. It may be hard to take it. But how does he give? Don't forget, Guru Sadhu Shastra. Right? Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.